Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number 1515H 600. This is a light-duty, double-acting spring hinge from Bommer with a hold-open function to it, and that's what the hinge looks like. At least it does with almost all of its parts. Let's show you the hold-open plate that goes along with this. There it is right here. And I'll show you how that works in a moment. All right, let's go over the specifics of this hinge. The 1515 is a louver door hinge that is rated for doors that are 1.1 to 1.5 thick. And this is going to be for doors that are, about 18 pounds. Nothing very heavy. That's going to have a maximum door width of 18-inch, but yet a minimum door height of 42-inch. And those dimensions are somewhat flexible, meaning I know that people have installed these in applications, smaller and larger, heavier and lighter than those guidelines. But nonetheless, that's the published data from the manufacturer. And you'll find that the variables of door width and door height and door weight all conspire in a way to have the hinge perform uniquely for that application. But those are the guidelines, is what you're dealing with. I have found if you're trying to hang something heavier, add another hinge up to the top of the door installation so as to keep the door from sagging down into the opening, but to keep it proud against the jamb. But of all of these that I've sold, people use them in their intended applications, and I don't have stories of people calling back to say that they are insufficient. And in fact, I've had people that have ordered 4 hinges for a door and were able to report back that the 4th was unnecessary. 3 hinges worked just perfectly for the application. Now, this hinge is available in the non-hold-open version, which is just the 1515. Then it's also available for thinner doors, 7/8 to 1 inch thick, which would be the 1514, and available as a 1514H hold-open model as well. Down below this video is a summary of the particulars of the hinge. They're non-handed. They can be installed in either orientation. With this hold-open bearing that we're going to go over, can be installed to allow you to hold open in either that orientation or that orientation. Again, 1.1 to 1.5 thick, minimum height 42-inch, maximum width 18-inch, and then 18-pound doors. It's made of steel, and the finish is a 600 finish. That means prime coat. It's just gray primer intended to be painted. Available in all of the common finishes: brass, your brasses, your bronze, your chromes, satin polished, oil rubbed bronze, zinc, bright black japanned, which would be a number 601 finish. If you want the black hinge of this, it'd be a 601 would be that color, but it's available in all of those. The door flange is surface mounted or mortised. You can mortise or surface mount it. We're going to go over that in a moment, why you would choose one over the other. Jamb flange is always surface mounted, meaning this portion, the jamb flange, that just will apply right to the face or to the jamb of the face of the jamb, not the face, the jamb portion, the flat portion, or the cased portion of the jamb itself. The door leaf, going back to that can be mortised or surface mounted as well. Easily adjustable spring tension, and sold per hinge. When you buy one, you're getting 1 hinge. They don't come sold as a pair, even though if you buy 2, they're likely to come in 1 box. It's just how the factory packages them, meaning you can buy an odd number. If you need 5 hinges for some reason, you can buy 5 hinges. You don't have to buy 6 or 4. Now, there is a link below this video to a document called Template, and that will give you all of the dimensional properties of the hinge. And it's also going to give you, we're going to talk about why you would mortise or surface mount that door leaf. Before we do that, let's take some basic dimensions. You can see from that drawing that for instance, the door leaf is basically 2¼ inch tall. That is pretty much the case. We'll have an overall height of the hold-open barrel. They don't They do give it. It's basically 3 3/16. Okay. You've got an idea now of the concept of how large the hinge is. 2 5/8, center of the barrel to center of the barrel. Then we'll have an overall, when the door is in the closed position, of about 3.5 inch. Okay, so just some basic dimensions for you. Now, the upper right-hand corner of that link called template requires a little bit of review and study, and then the table down below it. And as we look at that, what this is talking about is the relationship between the net door width and the inside width of the frame opening itself. And those dimensions, or that relationship, will change based on whether or not you're going to mortise the flange to the door or surface mount it. And then it's also going to be dependent on whether or not you're going to leave the leading edge of the door square or if you're going to radius the end of it over. So at some point you have to start with a basic dimension. Whatever is fixed. Is the frame already built? Okay, take that dimension. Or is the door already built and you're not going to modify it at all and then build the frame and rough opening around it, which is unlikely. You probably would start with the rough opening and then know that your jamb thickness will be 3/4, and then you'll deduct from there to achieve a net door size based on mortising or surface mounting the door leaf flange, or radiusing or leaving square the leading edge of the door. So you can see from that table, or I should say the drawing in the upper right-hand corner, the distance from the frame sizing information and the net door width is dependent on, being the first question, mortise the leaf in the door or you're not going to. So if you're going to mortise the leaf into the edge of the door, which will require a 3/16 of an inch mortise, you would achieve a 1/16 of an inch, which is the .062 distance from the edge of the door to the jamb. You'll then mortise 3/16 into the edge of the door for the door leaf, which is in that drawing there on the left side. If you're going to surface mount it, that 1/16 of an inch becomes a 1/4 inch. And then, of course, there's no mortise at all. So in this fictional example, if you've got a rough opening and then you're going to build your jamb and you're going to achieve, let's just say, an 18-inch door width, well, you're probably going to have a pair of these, would be more accurate. But in the single door simple example, you're dealing with a fixed door width of 18 inch. Well, you're going to have to modify that based on what is now your inside frame opening. So let's say that that dimension was the 18 inch, the inside frame opening dimension. Now you're going to undersize the door. All right, you know that you're going to mortise the leaf to the edge of the door. Therefore, you have to leave a 1/16 of an inch margin. So now your net door size becomes 17 15/16. And correspondingly, if you're going to surface mount the leaf, now your net door width is going to be 17 3/4 inch, based on the margins required. Then you go to the leading edge or the lock side of the door. If you're going to radius the door edge, you're going to leave an 1/8 of an inch margin. And if you're going to leave it square edge, you'll have a 1/4 inch margin. And that's just because if my fist represented a square edge door, you can get the idea how the outside portion of my hand, my clenched hand, is going to interfere with the jamb. But if I were to round or radius all of that over, I will be able to get away with a much tighter clearance, meaning an 1/8 of an inch, between the jamb and the leading edge or the lock edge of the door. Rounding the edge of the door over would be done with a large roundover bit, and the size of the roundover bit would depend on the door thickness, naturally, but 1 1/8, 1 1/2, those two margins will work, either 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch, radiused or left square. So, however, you would probably want the radius of the roundover bit to be directly related to the door thickness, but you would have this very large radius that you would put down the edge of the door on both sides to round that over. And you really wouldn't have to have a huge radius. You wouldn't need, if you're doing, a door like this, you don't need to have a bit that's potentially 2.5-inch diameter or a 3-inch diameter for an 1.5-inch thick door. I've got people that have gotten away with a much smaller 3/4-inch sort of radius because that's an available bit, and then they just sharply or aggressively round over that door on one side, flip the door over, then do it on the other side as well, and bring that margin down so that you can get the door tighter to the jamb. Now, in my opinion, if you were going to not mortise the leaf into the edge of the door, I probably wouldn't radius the other side either and just leave it square, meaning, leave the margins on either side of the door uniform. But if you're going to mortise on one side, I'd probably look to tighten up the margin on the lock side as well, or the leading edge side, so that when you viewed the door in elevation, it would look not out of place with a 1/4-inch margin over here and then a 1/16 of an inch margin when you mortise the door leaf on the other side. Now, radiusing the door edge, that's just having a router and the proper sized roundover bit. I've done that sort of task countless times, and it's just an investment in the tool to do it. If you're a door shop, you certainly have likely a dedicated tool or the capability of having an existing tool do the work. But if you're hanging one door and you don't own the router, I would certainly not even consider doing it and just leave it at a 1/4-inch margin. And quite frankly, I'd leave it on both sides, as I said earlier. But if you want to discuss radiusing the door edge, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll help you determine that. Obviously, the door height is not going to matter with what you're dealing with. You don't have, standard margins at the top and bottom of the door would be appropriate. Being most likely a cafe door, you'll have a significant margin at either end. Then there is a link below this video to the installation instructions, and let's take a look at that. And that is included in the package, and this document is almost 30 years old, but the hardware's not changed at all, which is a relief to some people because they're replacing something that's 30 years old. Oh gosh, are the screw holes in the same location? Things of that nature. So the answer is yes, they most likely are. So the installation instructions are for both the hold open and non-hold open. We're dealing with just the left-hand side of this document, where it will first begin with identifying parts. You've got your hold open keeper plate that I had indicated earlier. You're going to get your tension pin. You'll need 2 per hinge, tension pins, and then a tension rod is what you're going to have. Now we've identified the parts. So the installation is best done when there's no tension on the spring leaves at all, and that means that the tension collar, which is this ring here with the holes drilled in it, you'll notice it's at one end of the hinge only and not at the other end, is when the tension pins are removed, and they are indeed removed when it ships from the factory. You want to release that tension. If you're mortising the door leaf, go to step 2, cut out edge of door to receive door flange and provide clearance for hold open keeper. And that is a reference to how the hold open keeper is going to work in conjunction with the installation of the plate that we have here. Okay? Now let's discuss that. And the way that the drawing kind of relates what that hinge installation looks like is, as far as I'm concerned, a bit difficult to initially understand, but once you study it, it becomes pretty clear. So this is the hinge in the closed position. Okay, what they're showing in step 4 is, and back to step 2, you basically just make that preparation as follows. 3/16 overall depth for that 2 1/4 height. And then from the bottom dimension up what I think is 2 5/8. Let's look at the original installation instructions because that's a bit muddied up. Yeah, indeed 2 5/8 is what it is. No, okay, it's 3/8 of an inch. It's called out there. You will notch that up an additional 3/8 and then 1/8 of an inch deep only, and that will help accommodate the hold open plate as well. So now let's take a look at step 4 and try to study how that looks. So what you're looking at in step 4 is basically this sort of perspective is what you're seeing. Just what my hand is exposing. Just this leaf, okay, is what you see. So you basically see the hinge opened like this, okay? When the installation is all said and done, your installation, while it will look just like this as shown in the picture, when that leaf closes back, it's going to end up looking like that. With this little hook on the hold open keeper working with this bearing that's there, which is just, it's fixed, although it rolls. So when that door opens, that bearing comes in contact with that pronged turn on the hold open clip and allowing it to stay in that sort of position. And the reason it will get around that is because naturally, when this makes contact with the turned out lip of the hold open keeper, this part of the hinge is going to force the door to come out a little bit so that you can get out and around and then back hooked under with the bearing so that it will look just like this when it's installed, when it's in the closed position, okay? You know, when the door is actually operating, that's not going to really come in contact at all because this leaf will be out. This leaf, you know, the door will be, you know, actually operating. Come back this way, come back this way, things of that nature. So, because the spring tension is wanting to keep the door in the taut or closed position all the time, this little shoulder is going to nest really nicely right into that back portion of the bearing, allowing it to stay ultimately in the hold open position. Until, of course, you push on that, which will make this open up a little bit so that you can get the bearing out and around the 90-degree returned piece on the hold open keeper plate. Now, step 5 is basically setting tension. When you install the hinge, and it said it was non-handed, you can install it this way, you can install it this way, just of course reverse your installation plate as well, however you install that, it's okay. When the tension collars are pointed towards the top of the door, and when you have a pair of doors, the factory will recommend that you install one set with the tension collar pointed down and the other set with it pointed up. However, the orientation of hold open is going to dictate where you place those hinges, how you install them. How do you want, what side of the opening do you want it to be at 90 degrees to? Anyway, when the tension collar is pointed towards the top of the opening, you'll insert the tension rod and then turn it clockwise. And as you do so, you reveal new additional holes back there. And it's into one of those new additional holes that you'll insert the tension pin. And that's what keeps tension set. So you can take one of those silver pins and literally insert it into that hole that's there. And then as you release that, you'll be able to pull the tool out. Now you've got tension set. And you do that on both sides. You're going to want to test that. You're going to want to be very careful and control the door after you've got some tension set, because you don't want it to not be enough tension so that the door will actually become elliptical through its path and then make contact with the jamb. So be very cautious with it as you're swinging it through the opening. Step 5, place door in closed position, apply tension to each spring and replace the tension pins. Adjust tension as required. Do not apply tension past the third hole of the tension collar. 3 holes only. Otherwise, the light spring in this hinge will distort. You'll hear a sound. You have the potential for it cracking. And that's all of the installation aspect on this. So you're going to notch that door, mortise it, notch it appropriately if you're mortising the leaf. You're going to set the tension. You're going to simply place this plate onto the opening after the fact. Well, I shouldn't say after the fact, but you can. You have access to both of the screw holes with the plate installed. I'd probably mark all those holes for the jam plate and the keeper plate and get all that pre-drilled and then attached so that it's there in place. And then there is a bit of Q&A down below, questions and answers from clients that we've answered. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Bommer products that we sell, but you can also pull up a link to the manufacturer's website as well as a link to the full product catalog. Now, the advantage of the full product catalog, what I like to do with it is open it up and then search by 1515. You're going to get to the page where you're going to find the single-page summary of this hinge and its sister 1514 hinge for the thinner doors. But you're going to find the immediate related products to double-acting spring hinges from Bommer, meaning you might find another solution that's more appropriate for your application. You might have zero or very close to zero experience with spring hinges, so in that case it would absolutely be great edification for you to review the catalog just so that you become aware of what's available when it comes to double-acting and, for that matter, single-acting spring hinge type products from Bommer, and their name is synonymous with that material. Not only the 1515, but more so the 3029 series, which you should look at as well. If you need a hold open function, the 3029 won't be able to help you, but that's the classic double-acting spring hinge that you certainly may not have realized it, but you've seen those hinges installed probably countless times. They're everywhere. Common application is kitchen area to dining area in a restaurant and that double-acting door. That's a Bommer 3029, most likely. Very common sort of hinge. Again, they can't hold open, but Bommer has other products that can hold open as well. However, if you're doing a cafe door or a saloon type door, something like the 1515, 1514 with a hold open will be the solution for you. If you don't need a hold open, you'll be looking at the 3029 hinges, but in smaller sizes, which are directly related to the door thickness. So the 30, you'll be able, with a 3029 in a 3-inch size, you'll be able to get down as small as 3/4 of an inch door thickness, and you can get up to 2-inch door thickness in double-acting spring hinges. Again, if you don't need hold open, but then you can get decorative ball tips on that material. You can get into hinges that are for hollow metal door applications as well, and that's all in the catalog. If you have any questions on the Bommer 1515H and a 600 finish or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.